To understand the Iranian New Wave, we have to go back to Italian neorealism, because the major influence cinematically and what has defined Iranian cinema from the 1960s onwards was Italian neorealism. The great work of Roberto Rossellini, Vittorio De Sica, Luchino Visconti, films like Rome Open City, Bicycle Thieves, La Terra Trema. Their focus on the experiences of ordinary Italian people, the traumas of the post-war context in Italy, but also the decision to use whatever resources were available, often rather rudimentary resources in terms of Rossellini's film in particular, but that was inspirational for filmmakers across the world.
Start at the very beginning. How did the film come about? What was the idea behind it? What was the genesis?
I think originally it was, I suppose, I'm a documentary filmmaker. I suppose I started off making documentaries, and like the third documentary I made was on Tory Island, where the film finishes up. And I think it was part of the experience of making documentaries, of say meeting people, going to locations, and I think I was very much drawn to the folklore collectors of the 30s and 40s.
Fergus Daly's documentary with Pat Collins, The Art of Living, which Kairostami, actually he was shot here in Galway, and he was here in 2000 or 2001.
این دوربین تبدیل به یه قلمه به نظر من، قلم شده الان برای کسی که میخوان باش کار کنن. میتونه این قلم دست کسی باشه که باش خریدای روزانه‌شو بنویسه و میتونه دست بودلر باشه، بوده باشه که با شعر بگه. یه ضرب المثل ایرانی داریم که میگه اگر میخوای بشی خوشنویس بنویس و فکر کنم عین اونو در مورد تقویت نگاه هنری یا تفکر هنری هم میشه به کار برد. اگه میخوای بشی خوش ببین، هی ببین.
I was toying around with the idea for years of trying to do something around that idea, but I didn't really want to do something that was about the past or that romanticized the past, and I was looking for a contemporary take on it. And over the period of a year or so, I suppose I fell on the idea of a sound recordist trying to record silence. So instead of trying to seek out people and seek out stories, he's actually doing the opposite. He's trying to get away from people, and so in a kind of a first way, I suppose it's like it's the reverse of a folklore collector, but the end result is almost the same, because people are drawn to him, or people are telling him his stories, or he's drawn to people.
In fact, if you came here in winter, it'd be even quieter. You wouldn't even be there. I had one there, I had the wireless on the other day, and there was a kind of a documentary, and apparently there's this island off Scotland, I think it is, that's been uninhabited for 50 years. And the starlings there still make the sound of the mowing machines that used to be there in the 50s and the 60s. They passed it down from generation to generation of starling. Fascinating. Would that be the kind of story you're...
Well, not really collecting stories. It's more quiet I'm after.
You must be careful of that. Too much quietness to drive a fella mad.
I wanted to do something about the landscape in Ireland as well, and I kind of felt, I suppose, that the landscape didn't reflect how I felt about the landscape. In film, it didn't landscape in film. Previous films, I felt I didn't either do it justice myself, or that other people didn't do it justice. And I wanted to do something where you kind of shot through all the kind of cliches of landscape, and to kind of just show how it feels to be standing in those places.
The second major influence that we need to bring into our understanding of what is distinctive about Iranian cinema is Iranian literature, and particularly poetry, Persian poetry, the extraordinary rich tradition of literature and poetry that exists in Iran.
نه خاور نه باختر نه شمال نه جنوب همینجا که من ایستادم.
Was it always going to be about a homecoming of sorts?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I suppose the theme of exile is strong in it. But it's not just the kind of exile of an immigrant, I suppose, you know, even though I think Owen at the beginning is just a little stuck, you know, and I mean, and he's stuck like a lot of people are stuck, you know, and he doesn't really know what to do, you know. He's at a certain age where he's kind of, you know, he's looking to the future and probably worrying and kind of looking to the past, but doesn't want to go back there, you know, is afraid to go back there. And I think people are kind of, you know, there's a sense as well that people are exiled from themselves, you know, exiled from their past as well, and exiled from, you know, you know, you think of family members who are gone or neighbours who've gone, and there's a sense of loss about that, and you feel exiled from that, like you kind of maybe want to go back and kind of stop time, you know, slow it down, you know, and I think those kind of themes are in it, you know. But I think the exile from yourself and exile from your past, I think, an exiled physical exile from your country, I think, is something that's it's rich material, you know.
Don't particularly want to go.
So why are you going?
Oh, it's work. Purely work.
Und so durchlaufe ich des Lebens Bogen und kehre, woher ich kam.
They're so human. They're so human and they're so fragile as well at the same time, you know. So in that case, I think it's very interesting, especially with silence. And also, you could see the traces of Iranian New Wave in Song of Granite as well, but especially silence has this quality.
Writer he stays with briefly when he's travelling the country is walking towards him, and it moves from a long shot to a medium to a close-up, and as he's walking across the field, and you get the full kind of capture the full environment and the human emerging and interacting with the environment. But it's something that records when he's in the forest and he's trying to capture the sounds of the forest during the rain, and his relationship with that environment, and how he's trying to, in a way, find his own space within that environment and find himself, his own who he is as a person, and that eventually, of course, takes him back to Tory Island, to where he's from, and that journey. And that journey itself is something that's very reminiscent of Kairostami's work, in the sense that Kairostami, despite all the challenges he faced, insisted on returning to Iran. And he said, he said not working in Iran would be like uprooting a tree and trying to plant it somewhere else. He could never make the films he made or be the filmmaker he was without being part of where he was from. And that's what silence is about, perhaps.